Hello and welcome. My name is Brennan,
My name is Liam.
and this is Dodge the Norm.
Hello, today we have a very special guest here, Alfredo Dreyfus. Would you mind introducing yourself?
First of all, thank you guys for having me on your live stream. My name's Alfredo Dreyfus. I'm the president of Aerozone, a company that's been in Chandler for 31 years, in Arizona for 31 years. We're also based out of Ireland, where we have a warehouse, and we have offices throughout the globe: Singapore, England, New York, etc.
Can you tell us about your company and what it does?
So we distribute airplane parts. We also sell used parts, but they're refurbished. We sell to most of the airlines in the free world, and we've been doing it for a very, very long time. The majority of what we sell is Boeing and Airbus parts.
What inspired you to start the business?
So I got into this industry just after a tour in the Air Force, and it was just deregulated, and I didn't see anybody doing it very well. And so I worked for another company for a few years, and they sold the company. And after they sold the company, I decided to start my own company. It was very small back then.
Yeah. What were you doing before you started the business?
Air Force. I was in the Air Force. I was in the military. I was a weather specialist, 1WOX1, and I did some Army support, search and rescue stuff. Worked with the Army guys. Before that, I graduated from high school. I went right into the military from high school. So I've been doing this most of my life.
That's awesome. Was there a defining point when you knew you had to pursue the business?
No. I had a lot of job offers, and I had an opportunity to take on some partners too. My dad had given me advice. My dad was a business owner, and he had given me advice. He said, son, I took your security blanket away from you when you were 4 years old. And that was my cue to not take on a partner and to do it myself. And although it was harder, and I didn't necessarily have enough money to start the way I wanted to start the company, it ended up working out for the best.
What were the biggest challenges you think you faced in the early stages of this?
In the early stages, just managing cash flow. The problem is for a lot of young companies is you can grow yourself into bankruptcy. So you run out of cash while you're still trying to float the business, and you can get a bad reputation if you don't pay your bills on time. So for me, it was a matter of managing cash flow, staying within my lane, and not growing too fast. Soon after that, I realized that you could leverage your relationship with the bank if you were running your business well and actually borrow money. And there's something, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And good debt is when you're investing into the growth of the company to allow you to make more revenue, to earn a return faster than the interest that you're being charged from the bank. And so not long after I started the company, then it was about managing the relationship with the banks to allow the company to continue to grow.
How did you fund your startup initially?
I had $60,000 cash, and I talked the bank into giving me a $40,000 line against my house. So I put basically everything I owned up, and I started with $100,000, and I spent it in 3 days. So, and I waited for that money to come back at about a 30% return. And then when that money came back, I reinvested it, and we were off to the races at that point.
Was it really difficult to put everything up, everything on the line?
Well, when you don't come from anything and you don't have anything, then it's a lot easier to put everything up. And so I didn't have a whole lot. So it was just a whole series of good choices, because when you're a small business owner, every decision you make is all in, and one mistake can cost you everything. So you try to make conservative decisions. You try to make decisions that mitigate the risk that is involved with giving other companies credit, and you hope for the best, you pray, and you hang on tight.
So how does your day-to-day look like from when you started your business till now?
So the day-to-day back then was very much in the trenches. So I was in sales, in purchasing, trading parts, managing inventory, involved in every single decision. The big difference from then to today, and what a business owner has to be able to do, is you have to be able to delegate and to give other people the power to empower them to be able to make decisions on their own in what's in the best interest of the company. So what looks different from back then to today is that now we have lots of layers of management. We have our executive team, our directors, our vice presidents, directorships, managers, lower level managers, and so on and so forth. And so now there's a whole lot of delegation that happens, and we've empowered most of the people in this company to be able to make their own decisions and trust them to do that.
Here's an interesting question. How do you think AI will affect your industry?
So AI is going to change everything. We're already using AI. AI is helping us to evaluate reports that we get back, evaluation reports, teardown reports. AI is helping to do background checks for us on companies. So when we're doing our due diligence for export compliance, for example, we rely on AI to put together somewhat of a dossier to help us to evaluate the companies the new companies especially, that come in to do business with us. And so, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think AI is going to reduce the amount of workforce that you need to accomplish the day-to-day tasks. I also think that AI has the potential to take most customer service positions away once we get AI to the level where it can respond back just like a human can, and make some of those more menial decisions that are pretty standardized and can be, programmed. AI has the potential to change everything. Right now, it's at the very early stages, and I think that that AI, if used correctly, has the potential to, make everyone's life better. I think we can grow the company without necessarily having to hire a ton more people to grow the company.
Do you think college is a necessity to achieve success in today's world?
No. I think that college has a very specific role in that if you go into any of the specialty professions, like a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, an engineer, then you have to have that training. But I think for most jobs in today's world, either a vocational school or on-the-job training with good mentorship will get you just as far, just as fast. I do think there's a role for college. I also think if you want to go into politics, if you want to make connections because of the business the enterprise that maybe you want to get into, then college can serve a valuable role, especially some of the better known colleges, because you can make lifelong friendships from those schools. So there is a definite value and use, but for a lot of what we do nowadays, it's not necessary. Also, you have to be careful. I've already had one daughter I put through college, and there's a lot of indoctrination that happens at the college level. And so you have to be careful that you have an open mind in school, that you don't let them indoctrinate you with their way of thinking necessarily, and that you have someone around you to bounce off different perspectives than the one that the school gives you.
What is the best advice that you can give young entrepreneurs today?
You don't have to necessarily know what industry you want to get to, but you have to know business. So the best advice I can give you is to get into the real world, jump in both feet first. Really, when given the opportunity for mentorship, embrace that. Because in my life, and I'm a very proud college dropout, in my life I have had a series of mentors. And there's a story that Scott Adams tells. He went to school to be a brain surgeon, and he hated it. And after his parents paid a ton of money to put him through an Ivy League school, he realized what he wanted to do was doodle and draw. And he put his ear to the ground, and he compared it to when you're in a really crowded room and you hear lots of noise, and then you hear your name, and it really stands out. He opened himself up to hearing and listening for the opportunity to be a cartoonist. And when the opportunity presented itself, he pounced on it. And so I think in life, you just have to make sure that you're open to listening, putting your ear down to the ground and listening for the railroad, on the railroad tracks for that train coming. And if you can do that, you won't miss out on the opportunities. They're there. They're given to you. But if you're not open to it, you won't recognize it when it happens.
When starting your business, it's super easy to get like dragged down and like get negative. How do you think you like stayed positive throughout that whole process?
So that's a very good lesson for an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has to always make decisions optimistically. You have other positions in a company where, for example, a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, has to assume worst case scenario for everything. So our CFO, we call him a CFNO, because everything starts with a no. But as an entrepreneur, I can't make decisions based on weakness. I have to make them based on strength. So every decision that I make, I can't say, but the economy might crash. But what if we run out of money? But what if it's not the right deal? Or what if we just wait in case a better deal comes along? No. As an entrepreneur, you'll realize very quickly that if you're doing things right, your entire job will morph into being a decision maker. Yes and no. And you can't be scared of making decisions.
Where do you see yourself in your business in 10 years, and what are the processes that will get you there?
Great question. So right now we're working on factory distributorships, and so we see that as maybe the next phase of Aerozone's growth. We appreciate planned growth, stable growth, and we don't want to overgrow. So we're very careful in what we take on. We have had a multitude of opportunities to sell the company, but I'm still a spry 53 years old, and I see lots of our kids, not just our kids in our families, but our kids here in the company already, the 20 and 30-year-olds that are the future of this company. And so I see us continually having steady growth, being industry leaders, trendsetters, and doing things the right way, not the fast way.
What do you think are like the most important traits and qualities of an entrepreneur, and like how they work on that?
The most important traits are integrity, honesty, transparency, and making sure that you can paint a pathway. We call it the PPP, painting a pathway to promotion, so that everybody in the company can be the very best at what they do, or given the opportunity presents itself, move into different departments and grow with the company. So as we grow, we want our teams to grow. And where the rubber meets the road is in tenure. And so when you look at the tenure of our company, the average employee has been here 15 or 20 years.
How did you get your first customer?
Relationships. So I had relationships already, and I also became somewhat of, I don't want to say an expert, but we were a value add. So we knew where there were inventories. This is before the internet. We knew where there were inventory stashed that nobody else knew how to find. So we would get calls and they'd say, hey, do you know where I can find a rudder skin for my Piper Cherokee 140? And I'd say, I know exactly where I can find that. And I knew where the inventories were stashed, and nobody else knew that. So everything in our country has developed now into service related, but I think at the core root of that is information. We're all information traders at one level or another. And so if you have the right information, you become a value add, and other companies can't live without you.
Now, you said you had relationships with people. How did you like get those?
Well, you have to have a personality,
Sure.
but you have to know how to become friends with people. When there's incentive for both parties to work with one another, both parties learn how to have relations and trust. So a lot of times trust isn't developed over the phone or in the middle of a transaction that you're doing with the customer or the vendor. It's developed over dinner, talking about each other's families, talking about each other's morals, pasts, likes, dislikes, etc. And so relationships are formed over time, patiently, genuinely. There's a lot of sycophants, which are people who basically tell you what you want to hear, but we don't do business like that around here. We're just very honest with our customers, and hopefully you like us for that.
What is one piece of advice you would give teenagers about planning their future?
I would say put yourself out there, continually get out of your comfort zone, just like you guys are doing this morning interviewing me. Don't be scared. My dad gave me a piece of advice when I was going to start my company. I called him that morning, And I said, Dad, I've got the $60,000 that I wanted to raise before I started my own company. And he said, do it, son. And I was quiet. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, I'm scared. And he said, what are you scared of? And I said, I'm scared to fail. What do you mean? I said, well, I'm scared I'm going to be laughed out of this industry. I'm scared I'm going to be so young, no one's going to take me serious. And he said, son, first of all, you will never be a failure in your mother's and my eyes. Second, if you fail out there, as long as I have a roof over my head, you will always have a roof over your head. You can come home and we will nurse you back to health and we'll push you back out of the nest so you can try to fly again. Do it. So I did.
I know you started this company with only $60,000, but how much money do you have now from the company?
First full year in business, we did 1.2 million in revenue. This year, we're on path to do well over 70 million in revenue.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is your goal every day you come into the office?
Our goal here is to focus on leaving the office better than we found it. And also, we try to make work into a game where we don't focus on making money per se, but we focus on winning. Just like if you're playing a game, what do you want to do? You want to compete and you want to win. And so when we come to the office, we focus on winning. What that looks like, we define and redefine again every day, every month, every year. But at the end of the day, if you're winning, money is the byproduct of winning, but it shouldn't be your first focus.
Thank you so much for letting us come by and interview, and thank you for hosting us.
Thank you, boys, for coming in. I really appreciate the time, and anytime.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to leave a like.
And subscribe.
And we'll see you next time on
Dodge the Norm.